The sun was low on the horizon, casting a blood-red hue over the Colorado plains. Dust kicked up under the hooves of a lone horse, its rider a weary cowboy named Boone Thatcher. He had been riding for days, cutting through the desolate landscape in search of work, food, or shelter. The land stretched wide and endless before him, a canvas of brown and red earth, littered with the skeletons of forgotten towns. The wind howled through the jagged canyons like the ghost of some long-dead beast. Boone was used to the silence, but something felt off today. The air was too still, the distant mountains too sharp in their shadows. He reached the top of a small ridge and stopped his horse to take in the view. That's when he saw it, a boy, maybe 10 years old, standing alone on the dirt road ahead. His clothes were tattered, his face paled beneath the grime. There was something strange in the way he just stood there, unmoving, as though waiting. Boone eased his hand to his revolver as he nudged the horse forward. When he was close enough to see the boy's eyes, he relaxed his grip, just a kid, scared and dirty. "You lost, son?" Boone called, pulling his horse to a stop a few feet away. The boy looked up slowly, his eyes too wide, too bright. "I'm the only one left," he whispered, his voice hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in days. Boone frowned. "What happened?" "Indians," the boy said, staring blankly ahead. "They killed everyone. The wagon train, my ma and pa, everyone's dead. I ran. I hid." Boone looked past the boy, scanning the horizon for any sign of smoke or bodies. Nothing. The plains were empty, the way they always were. "How long you been out here?" The boy shrugged, his bony shoulders hunched beneath the torn fabric of his shirt. "I don't know. A day, maybe more." "Where you headed?" "Nowhere. Just away." Boone thought for a moment, chewing on the inside of his lip. The kid had clearly been through hell, but something about his story didn't sit right. He had seen Indian raids before, there was always fire, always chaos. A boy this young, surviving without a scratch? It didn't add up. "You can ride with me for a bit," Boone said finally. "I'm headed south. There's a town a day's ride from here. You can get yourself some food and maybe find someone who can help." The boy nodded, silent as he climbed onto the back of Boone's horse. He felt cold, even through his ragged clothes. Boone said nothing about it. They rode together for hours, the boy clinging to Boone's waist without a word. Boone could feel the kid's eyes on him, always watching, even when they weren't speaking. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the barren land. As the first stars began to blink into the sky, Boone spotted the dim glow of lanterns in the distance. A small town, forgotten like most out here, but it would do for the night. "We'll stop here," Boone said, slowing the horse. The boy didn't respond, just stared ahead with that same blank expression. The town was little more than a cluster of buildings, an inn, a saloon, a general store. The streets were empty, as if the inhabitants had all drifted away long ago. Boone dismounted and helped the boy down. The kid looked smaller in the fading light, his pale face almost translucent under the stars. Inside the inn, the innkeeper, a wiry man with a thick mustache, eyed the boy with a frown. "Where'd you pick up this one?" "Found him out on the plains," Boone replied. "Said his wagon train got attacked by Indians. He's the only one left." The innkeeper's eyes darkened. "Indians, huh?" He glanced down at the boy, then back at Boone. "I've heard things. Talk, mostly. You best be careful with that one." "What kind of talk?" Boone asked, lowering his voice. The innkeeper leaned in, his mustache twitching. "There's been stories. Boys found out in the wilderness, claiming to be survivors of Indian raids. Thing is, they're the only ones left, and every town they pass through, something bad happens. Folks go missing. Animals torn apart. Some say it's wolves, but it's more than that. It ain't natural." Boone glanced at the boy, who was staring at the fire in the hearth, his back to them. A chill crawled up Boone's spine, but he shook it off. "He's just a kid." "Maybe," the innkeeper muttered, but the doubt in his voice lingered. That night, Boone lay in bed, his revolver close at hand. The boy slept on the floor, wrapped in a thin blanket. Or at least, Boone thought he was sleeping. Every so often, Boone would catch a glimpse of the kid's eyes glinting in the firelight, open and unblinking. Sleep came in fits for Boone, and every time he closed his eyes, he dreamed of dark shapes moving through the shadows, of wolves with human eyes, watching from the edge of the firelight. When he awoke, the boy was already standing by the window, staring out into the night. The next morning, Boone saddled his horse, feeling uneasy. The boy didn't speak, just followed him silently. They left the town behind, but the feeling of being watched stayed with Boone. As they rode through the plains, Boone began to notice things. Dead animals, rabbits, coyotes, even a deer, torn apart as if by something far more savage than any predator he'd ever seen. And always, the boy would stare at the carcasses with an odd, detached interest, like he was seeing something familiar. "Something you want to tell me, kid?" Boone asked, keeping his voice steady. The boy looked up at him, his face expressionless. "I'm just hungry." The way he said it made Boone's skin crawl. They reached another small town by sundown. This one felt wrong the moment they arrived. The streets were empty, too quiet. No animals, no people. The buildings seemed abandoned, their windows dark and lifeless. Boone dismounted, his hand resting on his revolver. "Stay close," he told the boy, but the kid just smiled, a strange, unsettling grin. Inside the saloon, the air was heavy with the smell of rot. Boone found the bartender slumped over the counter, his throat torn open, his eyes wide in death. Blood pooled beneath him, still fresh. Boone spun around, his heart pounding. The boy stood in the doorway, watching him. "They always scream," the boy said softly. "But not for long." Boone's blood ran cold. "What are you?" The boy tilted his head, that eerie smile never leaving his face. "I was hungry. I'm always hungry." Boone backed away, his revolver in hand. "Stay back." The boy's grin widened, and his eyes darkened, turning black as pitch. His skin seemed to shift, his body twisting unnaturally. "You can't kill me, cowboy." "Not with that." Boone fired. The bullet struck the boy in the chest, but he didn't fall. Instead, he laughed, a high, inhuman sound that echoed through the empty saloon. "You should have left me in the plains," the boy hissed, his voice no longer that of a child. Boone fired again, but the boy was already changing, his body contorting, growing larger, his skin splitting open to reveal something monstrous beneath. A creature from nightmares, with long, jagged claws and a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. Boone turned and ran, crashing through the saloon doors and into the street. Behind him, the creature howled, its footsteps heavy on the wooden floorboards. He ran for the horse, but it was too late. The beast was on him, faster than any man should be, its claws raking across his back, sending him sprawling to the ground. Boone rolled onto his back, his revolver slipping from his grasp. The creature loomed over him, its eyes black as the void, its breath hot and foul. It grinned, showing rows of jagged teeth. "I'm still hungry," it whispered. Boone reached for his knife, but the creature was too fast. Its claws sank into his chest, tearing through flesh and bone. Boone gasped, his vision blurring as the world faded to black. The last thing he heard was the sound of the creature's laughter, echoing through the empty streets. By morning, the town was silent once more. The creature, now hidden in the guise of a travel-weary dusty cowboy, walked through the desolate streets, searching for its next meal. The plain stretched wide and empty before it, the land waiting for more travelers to cross its path.